Welcome! So, have you ever wondered why a Jewish Bible and a Christian Bible can have so many of the same books, but somehow seem to tell a different story? Well, it's not just what's inside, but how it's all put together. Today, we're going to take an architectural tour of the Bible to see how just changing the layout can actually change everything. The answer to this question isn't just about which books made the cut. It's actually all about the arrangement, the architecture of the collection, the order of the books. That's what really changes the story it tells. All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with what a biblical canon even is, then we'll dive into the structure of the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, and see how the Christian Old Testament kind of rearranged the furniture. We'll check out the New Testament's design, and then we'll get to the big question, why does any of this order even matter? Okay, first things first. To really get this, we have to understand the blueprint for the whole collection. And to do that, we need to know about a key concept that librarians and scholars have been using for centuries. All right, the big word for today is canon. It's basically the official, authoritative list of books that a faith community accepts as sacred scripture. Think of it like this. It's the official process of deciding which books get a permanent, protected spot in the library. A process, by the way, that took hundreds of years to finalize. And seriously, the best way to picture this is to think of the Bible not as one single book, but as this huge sacred library. Each canon is like a different library's floor plan. The books might be mostly the same, but where you find them on the shelves, that can change your whole experience. So let's step into the first wing of this incredible library and look at the foundational collection, the Hebrew Bible. This is the original architecture, the one that all the other designs were based on. The Hebrew Bible is called the Tanakh, and its very name is a brilliant clue to its structure. It's actually an acronym. Ta is for Torah, which means instruction. Na is for Nevi'im, or prophets. And Ka is for Ketuvim, or writings. This three-part design is completely intentional and tells us so much. So picture the Tanakh as having three main sections, right? Each one has a really distinct purpose. First, you've got the Torah, which lays the foundation for everything. Then come the Nevi'im, the prophets, who tell the story of Israel's journey. And finally, you have the Ketuvim, the writings, which are this beautiful collection of poetry, wisdom, and reflection on that whole experience. Okay, take a look at this. This is basically the table of contents for the Tanakh, laid out in its three parts. Now, as you look, scan all the way to the end. Find the very last book under the Ketuvim, the writings. See it? It's the Book of Chronicles. This is so important. Where this book is placed is a major architectural choice, and it's the key to the whole story the Tanakh is telling. All right, now let's see what happens next. Early Christians take this amazing library, but they decide to remodel. They use all the same foundational books, but they draw up a whole new floor plan. And this right here is the crucial difference. It all comes down to how the story ends. The Tanakh ends with Chronicles, which looks back on Israel's history and finishes with a command to go home and rebuild. It's a story pointing toward national restoration. But the Christian Old Testament rearranges things. It puts the prophets last, ending with Malachi, who predicts a messenger is coming, which of course sets the stage perfectly for the New Testament. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, it's not just the order, right? Some Bibles are actually thicker than others. And you're absolutely right. That's because the Catholic and Orthodox libraries have an extra wing of books you won't find in most Protestant or Jewish versions. Right, so these books are called the Deuterocanon. They were written in that in-between period, after the Old Testament was finished but before the New Testament began. Early Christians, who often read a Greek translation of the scriptures, saw these books as part of the collection. So Catholic and Orthodox traditions kept them in the main library. Later, Protestant reformers moved them into a separate section, kind of like an appendix, saying they were valuable for history but not for core beliefs. Okay, so now we're moving on to a brand new wing of the library, one that Christians added on. This section introduces a whole new story, a new central figure, and a new chapter in the relationship between God and humanity. This new wing is home to 27 different books, but just like the Tanakh, it's not just a random pile. They have their own incredible architecture, and what's really fascinating is how it kind of mirrors the structure of the Old Testament. So just like we saw with the Tanakh, this isn't random. It's organized by genre, by theme. It kicks off with its foundation story, the four Gospels. That's followed by a history book, the Book of Acts. Then you get the bulk of the collection, which is letters, kind of like the writings, offering guidance. And just like the Christian Old Testament ends with prophets pointing to the future, this collection ends with its own book of prophecy, Revelation. And check out this quote from the Gospel of Luke. This is huge. It shows exactly how the New Testament writers saw their work as the fulfillment of everything that came before. Listen to how Jesus specifically names the three sections of the Tanakh: the Law, which is the Torah, the Prophets, the Nevi'im, and the Psalms, which is the very first book of the writings, the Ketuvim. It's a direct claim that this new story is the grand finale of the old one. Okay, so we've seen these different floor plans right, but you might be wondering, does just shuffling the books around really change the story? And the answer is absolutely, 100%. Think about it. The way the library is built guides you on your journey. It literally determines the last word you hear before you walk out the door. The Tanakh's design ends with a hopeful look towards returning home and rebuilding. The Christian design ends with a powerful promise of a coming Messiah. The order isn't just a detail. The order is the message. You know, this whole idea that intentional structure creates meaning, it's not just for ancient books. We can use this exact same architectural thinking in our own lives. In Jewish tradition, this is all about improving our midat, our character traits. By thoughtfully designing parts of our lives, we can create so much more meaning and purpose. I mean, just think. Ancient scribes carefully ordered these texts to point toward a specific conclusion, whether that was restoration or messianic hope. We can do the same thing. We can bring that same kind of intentional order to our own lives to match the story we want to be living. What's the final word you want your actions to speak? So, here's your challenge for this week. It's simple. Apply this architectural idea to just one small part of your life. It doesn't have to be some huge project. Just choose one small, maybe chaotic space, a bookshelf, your desk, or even just your schedule for tomorrow, and give it some real intentional structure. And while you're doing it, just notice. Pay attention to how creating that order makes you feel. Does it give you a little more peace, a little more clarity, a sense of purpose? When we intentionally build structure, we often find that we've also built a space for meaning to grow. Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Part S. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.